Intermission presents the Super Nationals from Bradenton, Florida, here on ESPN. This was the picture for the first scheduled event of the 1988 IHRA season. As you can see, Mother Nature chose not to cooperate, which forced the All-Pro Winter Nationals at Darlington to open this year's IHRA competition. Now, some 30 days later, the Straight Line Warriors have returned to Bradenton, Florida. And we've got great weather for round 2 of this year's world title chase. Hello, everybody. I'm Pat Patterson. Welcome to DeSoto Memorial Speedway, just outside of Bradenton, Florida, for today's running of the IHRA Super Nationals here on ESPN. This is the first time that the national program has been brought to this racetrack. You'll get an opportunity today to see the very best in Pro Stock, Top Fuel, and funny cars. However, while we may write new records in the history book of IHRA because it's a first-time event for this speedway, the weather may play a big factor in how those records are set. Now, for more on that story, let's go to my partner trackside, Brett Kepner.
This inaugural edition of the International Hobart Association Super Nationals presents a very interesting problem for most of the drivers, and that's the ever-changing weather here in the central part of Florida, right on the Gulf Coast. During the initial sessions of qualifying, the air was very cool and very dry here, no humidity and some tremendous runs. During the latter half of qualifying, however, the heat and humidity crept up with this event, and it made getting down this racetrack just that much more difficult for the drivers. Despite that, the qualifying numbers proved that a lot of drivers could get down this racetrack in plenty strong fashion. Darrell Gwynn led Top Fuel qualifying at 5.20 seconds, one of the quickest runs in IHRA history, and the funny car field includes the top 4 qualifiers led by Ed the Ace McCulloch within 0.04 of a second. Indeed, we're talking some of the tightest, quickest, and fastest fields in IHRA drag racing history. The weather during the event, however, is going to be worth watching because it's going to determine just how these drivers are able to put the horsepower down during the race. Back to you, gentlemen.
Thanks very much, Brett. It's a classic matchup today on ESPN, Man and Machine versus Mother Nature. John Lundberg will be joining me in the booth, and we'll be back with our first run of the Super Nationals in just a moment. Today's International Hot Rod Association Championship Drag Race is brought to you by Motorcraft. Quality parts for quality cars. And by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will. And by Anheuser-Busch, makers of Budweiser. For all you do, this Bud's for you. And by Goodyear Eagle Tires, because there really is a difference. Pre-race activities are just about over here in Bradenton. We'll be back with the Pro Stock quarterfinals right after these messages.
Speed. For some, it's life. Racing is in the blood. To win, all parts must work to perfection. Last year, the Motorcraft team won 4 world championships with the same Motorcraft parts you can buy for your car. Motorcraft quality parts from Ford.
After a racing engine builder has spent hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars squeezing every possible ounce of power from an engine, there's one finishing touch they like to add. Moroso Engine Accessories. Because an engine that is fast should look it. Engine accessories from Moroso. Race proven.
You can hear the understandable pride when modern brewers talk about the time they spend brewing their beers, or the time they spend lagering them. True, this reflects effort and care. But for Budweiser, some things take even more time. Like waiting for a big beechwood tree to grow from a small beechwood tree. For all the years past, in the years to come. This is the kind of time and the kind of care that go into your beer. Beechwood aged Budweiser.
Welcome back to Bradenton, Florida. Pat Patterson, John Lundberg, and Brett Kepner here for the Super Nationals. And up next, the Pro Stock quarterfinals. Pulling into the far lane out of Whiteland, Indiana, Bob Glidden.
Pat, Bob Glidden is the winningest professional driver in the history of the quarter-mile sport. The Whiteland, Indiana-based drag racer and his family have just done a remarkable job with a series of lightning-fast motorcraft quality parts Ford Thunderbirds. Now in the close lane, of course, the Berwyn, Pennsylvania Bill Grumpy Jenkins-built Chevy Beretta of Joe Lapone. The number 5 qualifier Lapone in the near lane, the number 4 qualifier Glidden in the far lane. We're now ready to drag race as the two cars roll forward to the pre-stage beams. Now, once again, we have to remember here that these engines produce well over 1,000 horsepower as we look at them, ladies and gentlemen. And controlling these vehicles at the start is a very ticklish process indeed. They now go into stage, and we're ready to drag race. Motors up, out of the chute they go. 5,000ths of a second quicker breakaway for Glidden, and he stays out in the lead as Lapone breaks something. Glidden wins.
And he did. The ET there for Glidden, 7.566 for Lapone. It's an 8.693. And, you know, you got to imagine that drawing Glidden in the quarterfinals, no matter where you're at, is a tough task. And for Lapone, it was a losing effort. Up next, we've got Adams and Smith. That would be Ricky Smith, of course, the 1987 world champion, against Terry Adams, coming out of North Wilkesboro, North Carolina.
I think what's going to happen here, Pat, is that Terry Adams is just going to flat have to gate job or beat Ricky Smith from the starting line. Smith has been world champion of IHRA drag racing 4 times. Once as a sportsman and 3 times as a Pro Stock world champion. And Adams, although he qualified very well in this race as the number 8 qualifier, Smith is the number 1 man. And of course, he's in our near lane with the big Chevrolet of Terry Adams in the far lane as the cars stage here in front of our ESPN cameras.
Well, it's 2 good old North Carolina boys getting ready to do battle here on the line as we wait to see who will pull this off of the 2.
Adams
Adams looks like he's got the jump there, but here comes Smith towards the finish.
Watch him in high gear. Smith just powers by the Chevrolet and wins within a lapse time of 7.429 seconds, while Adams is runner-up at 7.521, almost a 1/10 of a second difference at the finish line. Pat.
Is Ricky Smith on a roll or what? He did it to him in Darlington by beating out Bob Glidden in the final there, and he looks like he's got a good jump here in the quarterfinals.
Now at the starting line of the far lane, as you see him backing in with a beautiful brand new race car of his, is Carlos Gonzalez of Miami, Florida. The number 6 qualifier is one of the largest pool builders in that city, and coming up to face him will be Tim Neighbors, the number 3 qualifier. Now the 2 cars roll into stage here with Gonzalez committed to what he always tries to do, and that is to get a hole shot. The idea is to leave the starting line just as the green light circuit is completed before it shows, and pull a psych job on your competitor by leaving the starting line just a microsecond before he does. Let's see if he can bring it off. Carlos Gonzalez on the left side of your screen as we face the starting line. Now away they go, and a guy who didn't have to do it fouls. Neighbors is out of the program. Carlos Gonzalez cycles into the next round, and he gets there first anyway.
Well, you got to believe that Gonzalez's strategy up on the line may have shook Neighbors just a bit, and he had to foul his start, and that will cost Tim Neighbors this quarter-round run against Gonzalez.
Here the next pair, Warren Johnson, the number 2 qualifier. Interesting story here. Warren Johnson, his number 2 qualifier, is just 0.02 of a second and 2 miles per hour behind number 1 qualifier Ricky Smith. So the Duluth, Georgia Pro Stock veteran is giving very good account of himself here at the second running of the IHRA Super Nationals. His competitor from Ventura, California, Jerry Ekman, a beautiful Pennzoil Chevrolet. Ekman is qualified in the program as the number 7 qualifier with an elapsed time of 7:49, a 1/10 of a second slower in qualifying as opposed to Johnson's 7:39 qualifying ET. Now you got to remember, both guys have won a race to get to this, the quarterfinal round. Pat?
We talked to Warren Johnson earlier. His big push this year is to be an IHRA champion. That's what he really wants to see that team do this year. It's the Pennzoil Camaro up against the AC Delco racing machine there in the far closest lane to us, and they're just about ready to run.
All right, let's see what this big Oldsmobile can do against the yellow Pennzoil Chevrolet. They're in now to stage. Let's watch the tree. It comes down to green. Out of the chute they go, and we have a foul by Ekman. The psych job by Warren Johnson worked. Jerry Ekman is out of the program. Warren Johnson still running hard, runs through the quarter mile at 7.409 seconds, Pat.
And Warren Johnson will advance now to the semifinals. And Johnson, again, his concentration this year is to become a champion, and that's the way you do it. You do it the right way, which is put Warren Johnson ahead. He's been doing it for 12 years, John. He's 44 years old. He was an IHRA champion, or best finishes rather, in 1979 and 1980. Warren Johnson will certainly be around in the semis with this one.
We're going to show you now a 5-figure mishap and why no professional driver who has a supercharger, nitromethane, and a V8 engine under his hood wants to have valve float. Now watch what happens here with Ricky Bowie of Greenwood, South Carolina. This is Saturday afternoon qualifying as a valve hangs open, blows the supercharger apart, and lifts the body off the race car. Now watch the body come up, and you will watch as the body leaves the race car, it literally unleashes the parachutes. IHRA safety rules require that the parachutes be anchored to the roll cage. So the parachutes launch, come up, slow the car down, and you'll already see that the Halon 1301 fire extinguishers have done their job and put out the engine fire. 3 seconds into the run, $20,000 worth of expense, and Ricky Bowie of Greenwood, South Carolina ends a very expensive drag racing weekend on Saturday afternoon.
Fortunately, John, the most important part of that race car was not injured, and that would, of course, be the driver. We have more IHRA Championship drag racing from Bradenton, Florida, the Super Nationals here on ESPN. As the funny cars will be up next. We'll be back after this.
Get this t-shirt free with this special TV offer for Drag Review Magazine, the official publication of the all-new International Hot Rod Association. 24 action-packed issues, only $29.95. Plus, you get a sew-on cloth patch, car window decal, and full membership in the all-new International Hot Rod Association, bringing you a host of exciting new developments. Twice monthly, Drag Review brings you all the news of what's happening in the exciting new world of IHRA drag racing. Exciting new classes, exciting new stars, plus the latest technical information. Call now, special TV offer. Order your Drag Review and become a member of the all-new International Hot Rod Association and get an authentic IHRA t-shirt. Drag Review, 24 issues, only $29.95. Call now, 1-800-554-9000. Operators are standing by. Use Visa or MasterCard. Drag Review, 24 issues, only $29.95. Plus, special IHRA t-shirt bonus. Tell operator your t-shirt size. Have your credit card ready when you call 1-800-554-9000.
Experience excitement on the fast track. Winston Cup champion Dale Earnhardt leads the field in the bumper-to-bumper action of the first Human 400. Sunday afternoon live on ESPN.
We're back at Bradenton, Florida. Pat Patterson, John Lundberg, and Brett Kepner. We've got the funny cars up. In the far lane is Scott Coletta going up against Ed the Ace McCullough, John.
Scott Coletta, second-generation drag racer. His father, Connie, one of the great top fuel racers of all time. And look at the gorgeous new fiberglass carbon fiber body that Coletta has wrapped around this Oldsmobile race car. Of course, coming up in the near lane now, the Miller High Life Oldsmobile of Ed the Ace McCullough, high desert country of Hemet, California. McCullough, the #1 qualifier in the program at 5.548, ready to go with Scott Coletta. The #8 qualifier out of the chute they go. And look at McCullough run to mid-course. Now Coletta takes over. Coletta wins.
And the ET there for Scott Coletta, 5.772. For McCullough, it's a 5.752. So Ed McCullough, disappointingly, will not be around for the semifinals as Scott Coletta, a rookie, if you will, is moved up to the semis.
Has done a beautiful job. And now, of course, the next pair, Mark Oswald, perennial IHRA world champion against the Corvette from Minneapolis, Minnesota, driven by Tom Hoover. Now, the problem we have here is that Hoover breaks in the bleach box. He will not run down the quarter mile, and Mark Oswald cycles into the next round. I want you to notice something. A lone run, but low elapsed time of this round. Oswald holds lane choice.
Makes you wonder why anybody would go out and hammer it that hard, even though he knew he didn't have to, you know, to make that type of a run. He did, went out, ran a good time, and he will have lane choice. Up next, we have the John Force Castrol GTX machine in the near lane against Trip Shoemake and the Chief Auto Parts sponsored machine.
Force and Tripp Shoemake. Rehash of the Winter Nationals final championship. Out of the chute they go. Force has a slight lead. He's by Shoemake now. High gear charge. John Force wins. Elapsed time for the victor, 5:64.4, 2:57.88. At the finish line with the winner is Brett Kepner.
Well, John, revenge is sweet. 564 to 569. You reverse the outcome of the Winter Nationals.
Well, after the first round, with her smoking the tires, I was a little worried. Coyle made some changes. The team worked hard to get her back together. And on the dry, Coyle gave me the sign she was good. And I thought, oh, I'll drive her off to be safe. And I pulled up there. I thought, you know, this kid will kick our butt here. So I just put her right on the wood. And he made the right decisions. Old Coyle's heap struggled right down through there.
Did you see him at all? A 69, he was right next to you.
Not a chance.
So John Force will move up. Next on the line, we have Doc Halliday against Paul Smith, and that's a brand new body on Halliday's car. He blew one off down in Gainesville, John, and this will be a good race.
Doc Halliday, number 2 in the world in IHRA funny car drag racing last year against Paul Smith, the number 2 qualifier, and it looks like Halliday's got a hole shot. Smith backs off just a little bit. Everybody drives around, and it's Doc Halliday winning elapsed time, 5:76 at 2:58 for the Future Force Trans Am, 5:88, 2:08.33.
Earlier in the day, Doc told me that they're calling this car the Gray Ghost this weekend. As you see, no paint or numbers on that particular machine. But he's into the semis. We have more IHRA Championship Drag Racing coming up next from Bradenton, Florida, here on ESPN. It'll be the top fuel cars. Stay tuned.
Introducing the incredible Swiss dry cooker. A simple, powerful design gives you crisp, deep-fried goodness with just a drop of oil. The secret of the dry cooker is this patented hot air tower. Superheated air rushes up, circulates around food, cooking quickly, evenly. Put chicken in the dry cooker, and it's surrounded only by naturally flavored, superheated air. With only a drop of oil, turn out crispy, perfect frozen French fries and fish sticks. Dry cook hot dogs, and they taste like they've been barbecued over a hickory fire, but that's still just the beginning. Dry cook vegetables without boiling or steaming. You can dry roast nuts or prepare a mouth-watering roast. Order now on this special TV offer for just $19.95. Here's how to order.
Use your credit card and call toll-free. 1-800-922-4400. That's 1-800-922-4400. You can also save the COD charges by sending $19.95 plus $4 for shipping to Cooker, Box 8900-S, Buffalo Grove, Illinois. That's Cooker, Box 8900-S, Buffalo Grove, Illinois.
All the names, all the games, all the time. Only on ESPN.
We're back at Bradenton, Florida for the Super Nationals here on ESPN. Top Fuel quarterfinals up next, John.
Chris Karamasinas of Chicago, Illinois, a 35-year veteran of the quarter-mile sport. His mechanic in front of him now, finally locking the clear plastic nacelle in front of the Greek as he stages to race down a quarter mile with Gene Snow, the event's number 2 qualifier, and current IHRA elapsed time record holder at 5:19.6.
And Snow's coming off a good win at the Winter Nationals back in Darlington. Let's see how these two will fare in this matchup.
Now ready to go. Snow rolls out very strong. He's in front of the Greek by a car length, is stretching it with every turn of the wheel, and Snow wins at 5:48.3, 286.34. The Greek runner-up at 5:68, 248.
Gene Snow continues his role, John. He had such a good run in Darlington for the All-Pro Winter Nationals, and now again here in Bradenton, Florida, he looks like again he may be the man to beat.
All right, the next 2 cars are staged and ready to race. This is Rocky Epperly, the lower end of your screen, from Linwood, California, and you're looking at Dennis Purcell in a brand new, beautiful Cable Value Network car. There's his wrench, Larry Frazier, turning on the computer that will record some 16 functions of this vehicle as it goes down a quarter mile.
And you know, I asked Dennis what the most positive thing about the season would be for him this year, and he really feels like Frazier's presence as a crew chief is really going to make the difference and really going to be, you know, showing performance with this car this year.
Out of the chute they go. Epperly makes a good move. Forcell got him out of the gate, smokes the tires, and tire shake shuts it off, and Rocky Epperly goes into the next round at 5:53.2, 260.86. Forcell, runner-up at 6:76, slowing down, just 45 at the end.
Next up, we have a Quaker State Quick Fact coming your way.
While While the Top Fuel dragsters may be drag racing's quickest and fastest machines, some of the fans in the grandstands may be deceived by their rather large appearance. While these machines weigh 1,800 pounds in competition trim, underneath the magnesium body panels of these machines isn't much. As a matter of fact, one of the few times you'll get a chance to see a race car without the extra skin is Richard Holcomb's machine here in the pits at Bradenton. You'll notice that all the way down, this machine is basically nothing but a massive chrome moly tubing. One of the longest pieces of equipment, in fact, going through the center of the car is the steering link that goes down to the front end. Up near the front axle is the 12.5-gallon fuel tank that burns $29 a gallon nitromethane during the quarter-mile run. Also included within the frame rails underneath those magnesium body panels is the onboard computer that monitors engine functions all the way down and the battery pack that keeps it going. The cockpit of Richard Holcomb's Top Fuel dragster is quite sparse, but there are still a few major pieces of equipment. Of course, the clutch pedal, which is used to engage reverse gear or put the machine back into a forward gear. And over here on the throttle, when it is mashed all the way down at the first sign of the first yellow light, this little micro switch engages the computer to start recording critical engine functions. Also in the cockpit, the brake master cylinder and brake handle itself. Of course, the reverser lever, which allows Holcomb to back up from his tire heating burnout. Over here, the twin parachute releases, and over on the other side, the master fuel shutoff, which also doubles as the high-speed fuel release, which also adds more fuel during the run or takes more fuel out of the engine. While these machines may not seem like much underneath that magnesium skin, bear in mind that this entry represents 30 years of Top Fuel dragster evolution in drag racing. The amount of stress these machines go through during a 5-second quarter-mile run is simply unbelievable. And the chassis builders that construct these machines obviously are taking every bit of scientific evidence they've accumulated over the years into putting together the quickest and fastest motorsports machines in the world.
And here are two more of those as we resume the quarterfinal round of Top Fuel Eliminator. At the top of your screen, moving into stage, one of the sport's longest vehicles, at almost 290 inches, the Budweiser Top Fuel dragster of Darrell Gwynn. At the forepart of your screen, John Kerry, Dover, Delaware, a diesel mechanic, now ready to sprint down the quarter mile. They're staged and ready to move. Very tense moments here. Green, out of the chute they go. Kerry brakes coming off the cement. Here goes Gwynn. Sprinting down the quarter mile. Darrell Gwynn wins at 5:44, 232. Kerry, runner-up, never got off the cement, broke a drive line. And thus we get a single picture of Darrell Gwynn going into the semifinals, Pat.
Well, I know his dad, Jerry Gwynn, who is the crew chief on that car. It's a family affair for those guys. Are awfully glad to be going to the semis here after a good run here in the quarterfinals.
All right, final race, quarterfinal round. This is Richard Holcomb against Earl Whiting. Whiting moving into the bottom of your screen, a lumberman from Montesano, Washington. From Stockbridge, Georgia, Richard Holcomb, number 12 qualifier. The cars are in stage, now ready to drag race down the quarter mile. The number 12 against the number 13 qualifier. They come out, and Whiting gains a small lead, but breaks right here. Holcomb sprints by him and wins the race.
And that's a tough break for Earl Whiting. Rumor has it that a major oil company is looking at Whiting's car for sponsorship. We'll try to keep you updated as that story continues. We'll have more IHRA Championship drag racing from Bradenton, Florida's Super Nationals right after this.
Why does the Ford Thunderbird of Pro Stock champion Bob Glidden race on Goodyear Eagles? Exclusively because of the way Goodyear Eagles respond to the track. And why does Ford choose Goodyear Eagle street radials for every new Thunderbird Turbo Coupe? A major reason is the Goodyear Eagle contact patch, where the car ultimately responds to the road. Goodyear Eagles, because there really is a difference.
Speed. For some, it's life. Racing is in the blood. To win, all parts must work to perfection. Last year, the Motorcraft team won 4 world championships with the same Motorcraft parts you can buy for your car. Motorcraft quality parts from Ford.
Quaker State, the big Q stands for quality.
We engineer quality into every drop of Quaker State motor oil. Only Quaker State has QSX, an advanced formula proven to run clean for unbeatable protection from wear and tear.
Before our oil's good enough for your car, we prove that it works in our car.
Quaker State quality. We don't just talk about it, we live by it.
Quaker State, the big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Sunday, The champions shine on ESPN. Winston Cup champion Dale Earnhardt leads the bumper-to-bumper action of the first Union 400. Then we'll serve up the excitement as the best in women's tennis battle head-to-head in the finals of the Bausch & Lomb Championships. Finally, they'll fight like cats and dogs when the LSU Tigers take on defending SEC champion Mississippi State Bulldogs. Sunday, live on ESPN.
While most of the competitors in the Pro Stock pits are right now changing jetting in the carburation, Ricky Smith has the crew down underneath changing rear end gears. And Ricky, what do you hope to gain out of it?
Well, Brett, the rear end started whining in this thing. That last round started rolling, and we figured it was hurt, so we put a new gear in it. Basically the same gear, we just had to change. It's been tough all day. We had to change the clutch first round, and then we come back and change the rear end this round, and I hope we're tired of changing. I hope we can just keep winning here now. It's been a hot day down here, and so far it's going pretty good. It's just been a little hectic.
And now back to the line with this Pro Stock semifinal. It'll be Warren Johnson in the near lane against Carlos Gonzalez in the far lane.
And we see Warren Johnson backing into states. Johnson, the number 2 qualifier in the program, has won 2 rounds to get here and is the quicker of the 2 vehicles based on last round elapsed time. Here's Carlos Gonzalez, largest pool builder in Dade County, Florida, ready to sprint down the quarter mile with his 500 cubic inch Pro Stocker. Now he faces Warren Johnson, a former Minnesotan now based in Duluth, Georgia, the 500 cubic inch AC Delco Oldsmobile. Pat?
And as I told you earlier, Warren Johnson's big concern this year is I want to win the championship. The thing he doesn't want to do, and he said it earlier, was he does not want to overwork his people. He's got his work cut out for him here in this particular round.
No doubt about it. Gonzalez committed to a hole shot as Johnson is the quicker of the 2 as they stage. Ready to go. Motors up. Out of the chute they go. Gonzalez gets his hole shot, but watch Johnson in the mid-range. Here comes the Oldsmobile. Warren Johnson wins. The elapsed time for the victor is 7:41 at 187 miles per hour. Gonzalez runner-up at 7:60 and 184.
Well, he's consistent. Warren Johnson, if you can say anything for his ability behind the wheel, consistency is certainly what he does best. Up next, we'll see Ricky Smith come to the line against Bob Glidden, and that's a matchup that we saw in Darlington in the finals.
Pat, I guess if there's any classic drag race in IHRA Pro Stock competition, it's Glidden against Smith. And here we have them in the semifinal round. Glidden, first 2 rounds, 747, 756. Ricky Smith, first 2 rounds, 743, 742. So it looks like Ricky Smith has got this track dialed in just a little bit more consistently than Glidden. And of course, we have just seen an interview wherein Ricky Smith has put some brand new drivetrain components in his car for this race. Here's Glidden, Pat.
Well, the sponsor can't lose here. Obviously, Motorcraft on both cars would like to see both drivers win, and unfortunately, that's not the way it's going to be. Ricky Smith's 4 biggest fans back in King, North Carolina. His wife, Nancy, along with Matthew and Amanda and Melissa, I'm sure, are watching this, hoping Daddy's Motorcraft 4 can be a little faster than Glidden.
Bob Glidden's family right here watching the racing action as they're all involved in construction and campaigning of the car. Smith in the near lane, Glidden in the far lane as they get ready to go. Now you'll see that Glidden is not quite yet staged. He has to roll into the bulbs on the left side of your screen, and when they go on, it'll be time to drag race. We're ready. Green, out of the chute they go. Glidden with a slight hole shot. Smith trying to catch him. Glidden in the lead. Here comes Ricky Smith. It's going to be close. Ricky Smith, the elapsed time for the victor, 7:41 at 189. Runner-up Glidden, 7:49 at 187.
Now you ask yourself, why is Ricky Smith doing so well? It may be because they have their own engine program this year. He thinks that's going to be a big advantage. We have more IHRA Championship Drag Racing from Bradenton, Florida, coming up next here on ESPN.
CBS Video Library proudly presents the collector's edition of Star Trek.
More power, Mr. Silver.
One of the best-loved television series ever made. The Menagerie, the only 2-part, 2-hour Star Trek episode, is your introduction to this classic collection.
I present myself to you for arrest. The charge is mutiny, Doctor.
You may return the Menagerie for a refund or keep it forever for just $4.95 plus shipping and handling. You'll receive future collector's edition cassettes, one about every 6 weeks, with 2 complete Star Trek episodes on each cassette to preview risk-free. Keep only the cassettes you want with 2 complete Star Trek episodes on each cassette for only $24.95 plus shipping and handling. No minimum to buy. Cancel at any time. To begin your Star Trek collection with the Menagerie, have your credit card ready and call now.
Quaker State, the big Q stands for quality.
We engineer quality into every drop of Quaker State motor oil. Only Quaker State has QSX, an advanced formula proven to run clean for unbeatable protection from wear and tear.
Before our oil's good enough for your car, we prove that it works in our car.
Quaker State quality. We don't just talk about it, we live by it.
Quaker State, the big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Why don't we get something to drink around here?
In time, in time.
Great, because I'm ready for an ice-cold squirt.
That light, tangy, fresh citrus taste hitting my tongue.
Water? Where's the squirt?
Squirt? What do you think this is, boy? A country club?
Give your thirst a squirt or Diet Squirt.
And we're back at Bradenton, Florida. It's the Super Nationals here on ESPN. Funny Cars semifinals are coming up, and we're going to have a single run as we'll see Mark Oswald come to the line. There you see his car. Mark Oswald will be running by himself in this one, and there's a story behind that, John.
Yes, it's been a very expensive weekend here at Bradenton, too, for all the funny cars. And, of course, a particularly expensive weekend for the guy who's supposed to be racing this car right here, Doc Halliday. But now we look at the Motorcraft Stroh's 1988 Ford Thunderbird of Candies and Hughes as Mark Oswald does his burnout. And now let's switch to the pits for an interview between Doc Halliday and Brett Kepner.
The scratch in the center of this crankshaft main bearing cap indicates that there was a problem. The problem was a lot larger than even Doc Halliday expected. Doc, as you're holding the burned out engine bearing in your hand, there were some serious engine problems on that quarterfinal win.
Yeah, we spun a rod bearing, and the only way to repair it right now would be pull the crankshaft out, put a new crankshaft in, and the time doesn't allow us to do that, or put a spare motor in. And as you know, this was our spare motor after yesterday when the throttle stuck, and I had to use up the other one. So we're basically out of business right at the moment.
It's been a rough weekend. You showed up with that brand new unlettered Dodge Daytona body because of an incident a week ago.
Yeah, we had a bad time here last week in Florida, and we blew the body off and had to go get somebody to bring the new body back from home and put that on the car. So my guys are been really working real hard and trying to keep everything going and get us in here. And we feel we still did well. Unfortunately, when you have some parts breakage, you can't always help it.
Well, that'll give Mark Oswald a single into the final round, and I know you didn't want that after chasing him in points.
No, I'd like to stay right up with him. He gets a leg up on you. It's really going to be hard to catch up with him. And obviously, we were trying to win the championship this year, so it's going to slow us down a little bit, but we'll be back.
So, crew chief on the car, Leonard Hughes and Mark Oswald are going to get a single run there, John, and he's down and away.
Running very, very hard down the quarter mile. Looks like he wants to keep lane choice. And sure enough, he completes the quarter mile at 5:66. And let's watch the next race to see if Mark Oswald holds lane choice into the final. You just never know what's going to happen as we get into the late rounds of major event drag racing.
Well, Oswald's a four-time champion, and he'll certainly be reckoned with in the finals. Here we see Scott Coletta coming to the line, and Coletta really would like to taste victory here in Bradenton.
He's having the finest day of his life in funny car drag racing. He's run 5:77.2 twice, but now he comes up against John Force, the quickest man in the sport of drag racing, who in this first two rounds of competition ran 6:32 for an easy win in the first round, ran 5:64 in the last round, and it's up for grabs.
Well, Force is a two-year American hot rod champion long ago, and Force is the guy that, of course, went up against Trip Shoemake down in Darlington, South Carolina when we had the All-Pro Winter Nationals. Force really here has just got to get off a good run against the kid, and I guess Scott Coletta is no kid to this sport. He's been around with his dad, Connie Coletta, for so many years, but now he's close. In the semifinals here, he really would like to get to the finals.
I think the thing that every professional motorsports competitor fears is a kid on a roll, whether it's in motorcycles, road racing, or in drag racing. Get a kid on a roll, and you've got a hard day ahead of you. But if anybody can defeat that, it's the guys in the close lane right now, the beautiful Castrol GTX Jolly Rancher Oldsmobile, as Austin Coyle signals his driver, it's time to drag race.
Well, it's going to take almost a perfect run for Scott Coletta up against a master, John Force. They're just about ready to pull away.
Again, it's difficult to beat the Masters at the starting line. Force is now staged. Out of the chute they go. Force is out first. Here comes Coletta. Watch it. Beautiful pass in the mid-range.
Coletta's going to do it.
Coletta wins the beautiful elapsed time. 5:68.6 at 2:47.93. Key element, that gives Mark Oswald lane choice in the final.
Well, Scott Coletta is certainly looking forward to his first final here in Bradenton. You know, he was with his dad for so long and got so much experience with his dad that this is going to be a magical moment for him. Scott Coletta, there you see the car pulling, and here he is with Brett Kepner.
I'll tell you, if you want to talk about a picture-perfect race until John Ford shut off, 5:68, the winning number for you. And I'll tell you, Mark Oswald slowed down to a 5:66.
That's okay. This thing shook pretty hard out there, and I had to drive her around a little bit, and I shut off early because I didn't see him, so we got a chance.
Finally, a final round for Scott Coletta, and obviously the crew is thrilled. Congratulations, Guy. We'll see you in the final.
Again.
Now let's go back to the line with the Alcohol Funny Car Finals, John.
An interesting matchup here puts Art Hendy in the near lane and Arnie Karp in the far lane. Hendy, the #1 qualifier at 6:28, has made 3 runs at this drag race so far today, within 7/100ths of a second. The #2 qualifier, Arnie Karp, at 6.37 seconds, is the fastest of the two at 219. You're looking at him right now, 3 runs within 5/100ths of a second. These 500-plus cubic inch, alcohol-burning, 1,200 horsepower race cars are going to have a very, very close drag race. Here we go. Now as they stage very carefully, you get to see now Hendy is in, and here comes the yellow car of Karp. Green, foul, Karp is out. And Arnie Karp fouls away a possible chance at a victory here. Hendy wings through the quarter mile at 6.309 seconds with a top speed of the meet for alcohol cars at 222.77.
Well, it's a good moment for Art Hendy. I know that earlier today he talked about how much he really wanted to win. We've got more IHRA Championship drag racing from Bradenton, Florida. Coming up next.
Geese! Geese! I said send me the lease! Police!
End these mistakes in communication. From now on, don't just say it. Put your request on paper and send it on a Pitney Bowes facsimile machine. Your message is there, and the answer is back in seconds. We're Pitney Bowes. Think of us first in fax.
For details, call 1-800-421-7800.
What kinds of investments can you make at Schwab? Ask a Schwab customer.
I advise my clients to keep a diversified portfolio. At Schwab, you can invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, even CDs. And you can move between Schwab investments with one phone call. My advice? Diversify the easy way at Schwab.
For a free booklet, call 800-423-3100. That's 800-423-3100.
We're back at the Super Nationals here on ESPN, and it's the Top Fuel semifinals coming up. There's Daryl Gwynn and John. It's going to be a good race here between he and Richard Holcomb.
Holcomb is on a real good roll today, Pat, but Daryl Gwynn, the #1 qualifier in the program, is running very, very strong all day long, and you can see him testing the lane out now as he really smokes the tires hard. And there he is, Daryl Gwynn, 26 years old, Miami, Florida, and here's Richard Holcomb. 30-year combined experience between he and Clayton Harris as crew chief, and you notice the vertical chute combination required by the extreme narrow tread on this car. Now, interestingly enough, Holcomb was quicker than Gwynn in the quarterfinal round. Pat?
What an amazing guy Richard Holcomb is. He's had double bypass surgery. He's an elderly statesman. We won't go into how old he is. But nevertheless, Richard Holcomb can get the job done when it comes up on the line.
Let us simply say, Pat, that there's a quarter-century in age differential between these two guys. And as we see Holcomb now backing in from his burnout, there's 11 thousandths of a second between these two cars based on the last round race.
Well, we wanted to find out what happened to Gene Snow. Brett Kepner has got the story in the pits.
When Gene Snow told us after his quarterfinal win that he thought his machine was running on 7 cylinders, he was right. This is the #2 piston out of that engine, and as you can see, it's burnt and warped. At least not burnt all the way through, but warped enough that it had to be replaced. And right now, Kevin Simpson, John Ferguson, and of course Chris Eckert, the crew chief, are busy putting the motor back together. They've made the corresponding changes. They found out that the #2 cylinder was running a little bit lean, which caused that piston to burn. They made the changes in the fuel system, and they say the engine should be ready absolutely to perfection for the next round.
And we'll see Gene Snow in competition after this pair conclude their contest. Richard Holcomb stages with the Budweiser Top Fuel Dragster. 25 years and 11 thousandths of a second separate these two cars as they stage. You'll see what appears to be steam coming out of Holcomb's engine. It's not. At low RPM, this highly charged fuel system passes about 70% of the charge right past the plugs and out the tailpipes. You're seeing raw nitromethane. They're now staged and ready to drag race. Green, out of the chute they go. Good start by Gwynn. Holcomb giving good account, but there goes Darrell Gwynn by him in the mid-range. Gwynn wins. The elapsed time for the victor, 5:25 at 262 miles per hour. Runner-up Holcomb, 5:46 at 2:52. Pat?
Not only does he get the win here, but he gets lane choice in the finals. Brett Kepner's with the winner.
This will be interesting. Between yourself and your father, Jerry Gwynn, you'll be battling actually an old nemesis when it comes to crew chiefs in Herb Parks.
Well, that's right. But, hey, we're here to win the race just like they are, and we're just going to give it our best shot.
It's going to be a heck of a battle. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Now, who will Darrell Gwynn face in this final round? There you see Rocky Epperly bringing his machine out.
Don Marshall, the car's owner, based in the eastern United States. The driver, Rocky Epperly from Linwood, California. Engine builder, Herb Parks from Florida. A most fruitful combination here at the Super Nationals. Epperly looks down. They can't get Gene Snow's car started. And it looks like Snow is having some difficulty here. They've been thrashing on the car between rounds. A whole group of fellow drag racers were over there trying to get him back together again. And you see Connie Coletta trying to crank the engine to get it clear, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I guess we've got a single pass coming up here by Rocky Epperly of Linwood, California, as Gene Snow, the OM man from Texas, climbs dejectedly out of his top fuel dragster.
And that's a tough break for the Snowman out of Fort Worth, Texas, after a great run he had, leading the points coming into this event. Rocky Epperly up on the line, and what a great opportunity for this young rookie.
Question is, will he save engine and drivetrain or run her hard to the quarter mile? Epperly clicks her off about 1,000 feet down course for a 5:62 pass. And that engine and drivetrain saving run comes to the bottom line as this. Darrell Gwynn goes into the final round 3/8 of a second quicker with lane choice. Here's Brett in the pits with the news on Gene Snow.
It's not often that one sees Gene Snow, the defending IHRA Top Fuel World Champion, lose, but this is why the Snowman lost in the semifinal round. This little gear, which is actually the gear that drives the magneto, which is akin to a distributor on a Top Fuel dragster, sheared all its teeth off as the car was being fired. That was the reason that the machine backfired back in the water burnout area, and also the reason that it could not restart. For the first time in a long, long time, Gene Snow is out of the picture without even giving a fight.
So a tough break for the Snowman. We've got more championship drag racing from Bradenton, Florida, coming up right after this.
After a racing engine builder has spent hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars squeezing every possible ounce of power from an engine, there's one finishing touch they like to add. Moroso Engine Accessories. Because an engine that is fast should look it. Engine accessories from Moroso. Race proven.
Subscribe to Stock Car Racing Magazine. Get all the action from Daytona to America's short tracks. Every month, Stock Car Racing, the magazine that's won more awards for racing coverage than any other. Get the action in this special offer and free racing decals with your paid subscription. The same decals racers put on their cars. Call 1-800-441-3636. For less than $15, you get Stock Car Racing and free racing decals. 1-800-441-3636 for Stock Car Racing Magazine.
I'm telling you something, you yellow-bellied rat.
Stop! What he's trying to tell you is the legends of world-class championship wrestling are back. Weekday afternoons at 4 Eastern on ESPN. Don't miss it.
Because you're no good, son.
And we're back in Bradenton, the Super Nationals. It's showtime in the Pro Stock Finals. You see Warren Johnson pulling to the line, the AC Delco Oldsmobile. And he'll go against the 87 champ and the winner of our first event of the year down in South Carolina, Ricky Smith. There you see Warren Johnson, Duluth, Georgia. It's an 88 Cutlass, John.
Warren Johnson has made 3 runs here at this drag race within 15 thousandths of a second. Smith has made 3 runs here within 200ths of a second. The cars come into the final round of Pro Stock Eliminator separated on their semifinal round winning runs by just 3 thousandths of a second and 2 miles per hour. Pat, you can't ask for much closer drag racing than that.
No, and I think Ricky Smith, again, when we talked about what his edge is this year, it's got to be the 88 program that he's building his own motors. There you see Warren Johnson burning out. Here's how they got here.
Warren Johnson has run 7:42.4, 7.409, and 7:41.4. Smith, 7:43.6, 7:42.8, and 7:44.1. Both very consistent. As Warren Johnson backs in, makes a final check of some switches in his vehicle, and stages the AC Delco Oldsmobile to race this man, Ricky Smith, a 700 cubic inch, 2,600 pound Motorcraft Ford Thunderbird. The AC Delco Oldsmobile moves up to stage. These two guys are absolute killers on the starting line, and Johnson is almost committed to a hole shot here. Johnson the last to stage. Smith is in late in the afternoon, a lot cooler out now. Motors up, green, out of the chute they go, and Johnson smokes away, but Smith got a 5,000th of a second lead, and let's see what the big Ford does. Here he comes. Smith wins.
Ricky Smith with a 7:37 against Warren Johnson 7:42. For Johnson, it was 186.33 miles an hour, 190 for the defending champion, Ricky Smith, at 192.7. And that's a good run for the defending champion. Here's the replay, John.
All right, here's the slow-mo. You watched Smith's car move first. Just a 5,000th of a second lead. Hard to pick up on the camera angle here, but now you'll notice what happens. In the mid-range, that big Ford starts to work. He starts to pull and pull and pull, and he wins the race.
Well, Ricky, I think we all understand now why you were upset with those 740 runs. 737, 190 miles an hour.
Cooled off, the track got good. You know, I know when it got this cool, we'd run a little better. The biggest thing, I got lane choice on Warren. Same thing with Bob, you know, last week. This lane choice is, I mean, when we're running within 200s like we are, come here, Warren.
Indeed, here he is, 742, Warren, to a 737.
That's an excellent run for the right lane. I mean, he had to run a 42 over, it's got to be great.
Well, that's 2 national titles for Ricky Smith, and we're back with the funny car finals now. We've got a good shootout between Mark Oswald out of Cleves, Ohio, in the 88 Thunderbird. That's the Candy and Hughes entry. Going up against, first time in the finals, Scott Coletta.
Coletta's got to be on the high of his career. 577 twice and a 568. He's in the final against Mark Oswald, who significantly enough has set low elapsed time of each round he's raced in. And now we're looking under the hood of the KFS Oldsmobile. Scott Coletta, first final round at a major drag race in his career. And I'll tell you, win, lose, or draw, this has got to be Scott Coletta's greatest day in drag racing. And now, of course, we're looking at the Candies and Hughes Motorcraft Quality Parts Ford Thunderbird. Mark Oswald undoubtedly in the final round as a favorite. And notice that he's picked the pit or right lane of the drag strip. And there's Scott Coletta's burnout.
And let's take a look now at how the two got into this final. Mark Oswald knocked off Doc Holliday, Tom Hoover, and R.C. Sherman, while Scott Coletta had to take care of John Force, Ed the Ace McCullough, and Daryl Amberson.
And as they back in from the burnout, blowing the tire smoke out of the cockpits of these cars, Oswald 562.7, 562.2, and 566.9. Coletta 577 twice and a 568. Scott's dad Connie talks about lane choice.
The racetrack looks very comparable on either side. There's been good runs on either side. Everybody that had the lane choice just sort of stuck with the right lane because everybody else did, I guess.
Right.
Forrest went down in the left-hand lane and had absolutely no problem. He picked the left lane. So I think it's a toss-up of the lane choice.
Well, those are the words of Connie Coletta, and who should know better, John, all the years of experience that man has. But I imagine right now he's more of a nervous dad than a race car driver.
He's watching his son in the first final in a funny car of his life. As we watch the Motorcraft Quality Parts Ford Thunderbird back into its launch path by crew members. The two cars are staging now. They're about 200ths of a second apart, Pat, as they stage for the final round of Funny Car Eliminator, with Mark Oswald 12 miles per hour faster than Scott Coletta based on semifinal round speed clocking.
I got to believe with the temperatures that have dropped as they have this afternoon, and we're almost down to the last part of twilight here, that the temperatures are going to play heavily on the speeds of these runs.
The sun is on its way down for sure, Pat, but there's no sundown on this drag race until it's over. Scott Coletta, Mark Oswald, ready to go for it. Green light, out of the chute they go. Coletta moves well, so does Oswald. Oswald looks to be in the lead. Oswald wins. The elapsed time for the victor is 5:67.249. Runner-up, 5:69.256. Now let's look at that run again. We're at the starting line. They leave. Oswald gets about an 0.08 of a second start, but Coletta puts an early move on him. Now watch. Coletta makes the transition. The tire's smoke. He gets sideways. He backs off. Now Oswald moves by him and wins the race. Here's Brett.
Mark, you couldn't ask for a prettier final round. Side-by-side runs in the 560 range, and the Motorcraft 4 Thunderbird is back.
Oh, yeah, we were lucky. It broke a blower belt about 1,200 feet and coasted, managed to coast through ahead of him.
The supercharger drive belt is actually shredded?
Yeah, it quit about 1,100 feet, came completely off, and I was just coasting. I was hoping I could hang on in front.
That's amazing, because Coletta was just a few hundredths of a second behind you.
Yeah, we were lucky. It held on as long as it did, but the Thunderbird ran good today, and we're happy for Motorcraft and Stroh's.
I'll tell you, between Paul Candies and Leonard Hughes and yourself, you are just amazing in your preparation of this car. The consistency today, even with the problems, has been incredible.
Thanks a lot.
Good luck.
Thank you. Blower belt came off about
Well, it's a tough day for the rookie Scott Coletta, but nevertheless, the experience will certainly do him well in his next opportunity when he moves back to another final round. We've got more drag racing from Bradenton, Florida. It's the IHRA Championship Drag Racing continues here on ESPN. We'll be back in just a few moments with our final round of the Top Fuel division.
Introducing Minivac, the amazing miniature cleaning system designed to take on hundreds of chores no ordinary tools can handle. Minivac cleans away dust from camera lenses, computer keyboards, figurines, or stereo equipment. Minivac's powerful motor vacuums away dust and dirt. It comes with 2 wand attachments, 2 ultra-soft brush nozzles, and a reusable vacuum bag. Keep one in the car for cleaning along the dash, steering column, stereo, ashtrays, and seats. Minivac is perfect for removing dust and debris from pictures, models, and those impossible-to-reach crevices. In this special television offer, you get Minivac with all 5 attachments, plus convenient storage case for only $19.95. Here's how to order.
Credit card and COD customers call toll-free 1-800-453-3800 or save COD fees by sending $19.95 plus $3 shipping and handling to Minivac, P.O. Box 8900-N, Buffalo Grove, Illinois, or call 1-800-453-3800.
Quaker State, the big Q stands for quality.
We engineer quality into every drop of Quaker State motor oil.
Only Quaker State has QSX, an advanced formula proven to run clean for unbeatable protection from wear and tear.
Before our oil's good enough for your car, we prove that it works in our car.
Quaker State quality. We don't just talk about it, we live by it.
Quaker State, the big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
This is ESPN, the Total Sports Network.
We're back in Bradenton, Florida, the Super Nationals IHRA Top Fuel Finals. It'll be our final race of the day, and there you see the young rookie, Rocky Epperly, in his first ever final event.
We look right down the nose of the King and Marshall machine as Rocky Epperly has run 5:41, 5:53, and 5:62 to get into the final round. He is about 3/8 of a second separated from this man, Darrell Gwynn, who's run 5:22, 5:44, and 5 1/4 seconds in the 13:20. They'll be facing each other right now as the engines start. We look at Darrell Gwynn, 26 years of age, Miami, Florida. A father and son racing team. His father, Jerry, an alcohol dragster, champion before he built this top fueler for his son. The car some 290 inches long, as now we see the burnout as Darrell Gwynn prepares to race in the lane he chose.
It's questionable as to whether or not Gwynn will get the kind of response out of that lane. Let's look at how they got here, John. Gwynn knocked off Richard Holcomb, John Kerry, and Bob Strauss, while Epperly defeated Gene Snow, Dennis Purcell, and Connie Coletta. Both had awfully tough paths to get to this final round.
Right, and as we now take a look at the King and Marshall machine, they will begin this race some 3/8 of a second apart in terms of semifinal round elapsed times. And Epperly, who you see doing his burnout now, is committed to the whole shot. He's got to make up part of that 3/8 of a second differential. You got to remember that in the semifinal round, he ran 5:62, and Darrell Gwynn ran 5 1/4 seconds.
Obviously, we're just pleased to be in the final. The last couple outings we haven't made it past first round, and we're excited to be in the final in front of our hometown fans. It makes us feel real good, and a lot of things we tried this weekend worked out, so maybe at the Texas Motorplex we might get what we're all hoping for.
And what they're hoping for is a 499, Pat. And let's see how Herb Parks feels about his driver, Rocky Epperly.
Rocky Epperly, I think one of the first drag races he ever went to, he helped me on Don's car back in the old days without reversers to push the car around in the pits. So when Rocky was about 13, he hooked up with me, rode around the country a little bit, and he's been a good friend, and he's developed into a pretty good little driver, and I was comfortable bringing him from the West Coast here to drive this car.
You know, it's got to be a special feeling for Herb Parks watching this young man, after knowing him so long, to be here in the finals in the Super Nationals in Bradenton.
Okay, now one of 2 things is going to happen right now, Pat. We're either going to have a whole shot or a red light by Rocky Epperly. He's committed to one or the other. He now faces Darrell Gwynn, who at 26 years of age may just be the Super Nationals Top Fuel Eliminator champion. It's time to drag race. The long Rhode Island Top Fuel dragster of Rocky Epperly in the pit lane of the drag strip. At the bottom of your screen, the Budweiser Quaker State Top Fueler of Darrell Gwynn, Miami, Florida. Now they're staged and ready to move. They're moving hard. Beautiful shot out of the gate. Epperly gets his lead, but here comes Gwynn in the mid-range. Gwynn running hard, blows the motor, but wins. Elapsed time for the victor is 5:33 at 2:10. Runner-up Rocky Epperly, 5:50, 2:27.34. And Pat, the crew is really happy.
And well, they should be. Darrell Gwynn proved exactly why he is the champion after having a great run. And, you know, you got to tip your hat to Rocky Epperly. Let's look at the replay.
Here comes Epperly away from the starting line. He leaves 17 thousandths of a second after the green light circuit is completed and gets his whole shot. But watch Gwynn in the mid-range. Here comes the Budweiser car by to about 1/4 of a length lead. He now begins to stretch it, and now you'll notice a puff of smoke off the back of Epperly's car. He backsided some pistons. Now watch the smoke coming out of the back of the Budweiser car, engine expiring pass, and here's Brett with a winner.
Well, Darrell, it was a costly win, but a win nonetheless in front of the hometown crowd. 5:33 at only 210 miles per hour. What a ride.
Well, I don't know about costly. I don't think it hurt too much. I did feel it stumbled right at the finish line. I don't think it broke anything major, but obviously we're pleased to be here in the winner's circle.
Rocky was right behind you at 5:50. What do you think it was? Anything I did?
Well, it looks as though the blower belt hit the spark plug wire. It just sputtered down there, and I lifted. I wasn't going to take a chance on running another motor here. I didn't see him next to me, so I was going to go for it.
It had to be close with you slowing at the finish line, but I know that there's an awful lot of happy people in the grandstands to see the hometown boy win it.
You got it. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Good luck.
So Darrell Gwynn picks up the win in the top fuel category, and what a great day for Rocky Epperly in his debut in a final event. John, it's been a super event. I guess that's why we called it the Super Nationals. Your thoughts?
Well, it took 25 days to run a 4-day drag race, but you're right, Pat. We've seen a barn burner. Now for some final thoughts from Brett Kepner.
The inaugural edition of the International Hot Rod Association Super Nationals here at DeSoto Memorial Speedway indeed proved to be a killer event. However, although we saw the domination of Darrell Gwynn and the Budweiser Quaker State Top Fuel car, the incredible consistency that dealt death to every single one of the funny car competitors by Mark Oswald and the Candies and Hughes Motorcraft Thunderbird, and the continuing domination of Ricky Smith's Motorcraft Ford Thunderbird in Pro Stock Eliminator, take a look at the people we saw also in those final rounds. We had Warren Johnson with the first Oldsmobile appearance in a Pro Stock final in IHRA racing in some 6 seasons. In Funny Car Eliminator, Scott Colita, along with the help of his father Connie and his crew, finally made it to an IHRA final and gave a tremendous representation of that team's efforts. And in Top Fuel, Rocky Epperly, who with crew chief Herb Parks, took the brand new King and Marshall machine to a tremendous showing here. I think we're going to be seeing not only the domination we have seen by the old pros, but some tremendous new talent in 1988 IHRA Championship drag racing. That's going to be something to keep an eye on in future ESPN shows. Back to you, gentlemen.
Thanks very much, Brett Kepner. We're glad you could join us here for the Super Nationals on ESPN. I'm Pat Patterson for Brett Kepner and for John Lundberg. Thanks for joining us. Today's event was brought to you by Motorcraft, quality parts for quality cars. And by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality, always has, always will. And by Anheuser-Busch, makers of Budweiser. For all you do, this Bud's for you. And by Goodyear, Goodyear Eagle Tires, because there really is a difference.